Let's talk martial arts, one of the purest forms of combat, with a wide range of styles. True mastery, however, requires experience, rigorous training, and sheer will. It's usually pretty obvious when a fake master tries to impress, and the outcome is almost always predictable and hilarious when they face someone with real skill. Here are 20 times that fake masters getting destroyed by real fighters. Number 20. MMA versus Kung Fu. It is one of the great what-if scenarios in any fighting genre. Who would win between two good fighters of different disciplines? The answer is, it depends on the fighters and the situation itself. Every fight can be different, and every fighter is different, with no exception. Enter Wayne Hunter. He was a former football player who had decided to go off and learn martial arts, which is not really a bad pivot for an athlete such as himself. He found a so-called Kung Fu master who had made his own style of Kung Fu called White Eyebrow. Now, I know that name sounds dumb, but that doesn't mean it's an instant he's a loser kind of thing. Hunter even admitted that the style was created to be perfect for street fighting or, in his case, mixed martial arts. The thing that master and student disagreed on, however, was the ground game. You see, the master felt that with the training he was trying to instill in Hunter, he wouldn't need to learn anything for the ground game, as he would never be taken to the ground in the first place. That master then entered Hunter into an MMA tournament, where Hunter won his first fight but lost a subsequent one due to not knowing how to defend from a rear naked choke. The master was furious with his student and later showed up to teach him a lesson in a one-round, 15-minute, no-rules fight. He even signed a waiver to ensure that Hunter wouldn't be held responsible for what happened. And as you can guess, Hunter totally owned him, and the master didn't do much more than stretch out Hunter's shirt. Not only did Hunter win that fight, but he soon found himself a true teacher who actually helped him learn both the ground game and every other aspect of MMA. As you're about to see throughout this video, there are plenty of people who want nothing more than to say that they know everything, and then they shrink when the challenge actually comes. This master was just the first of the victims of that notion, and we will certainly see many more going forward. Number 19. The Fake Shaolin. One of the sadder parts about the Shaolin culture is that it's honestly rather easy to imitate. And no, I'm not just talking about movies and shows, but on the internet and in real life, there are all kinds of people who claim to be Shaolin monks or masters. They then attempt to display their so-called skills only to be wrecked and exposed with ease. Enter this fake monk, who even showed up to a mall in his traditional garb. He challenged an experienced MMA fighter to a battle and claimed he would use praying mantis style to defeat him. To be clear, praying mantis style is one of the 5 main forms of Kung Fu, as many of you likely know from various properties, including Kung Fu Panda. But the problem was that when you watched this guy perform, it was anything but convincing. He was doing moves in such a comedic way that the boxer was able to easily dodge and overpower him without even breaking much of a sweat. Eventually, the boxer won, and the monk was sent back to his so-called monastery in shame. Just because you dress up like a monk does not mean that you are actually one, so don't go insulting the cloth or the culture by making such claims that are seriously in error. Number 18. No Touch Master. With this one, I'm going to laugh right along with you as this master gets his face handed to him in predictable fashion after making a claim that just doesn't make any kind of sense in the real world. Now, while you may have heard that various martial artists can achieve superhuman feats due to their training and skills, which Bruce Lee proved on the regular with actions like the 2-finger push-up, that doesn't mean they're able to truly break the laws of physics like martial arts films and shows would have you believe. Enter this master, who says he is an energy shield master, claiming that he could block any punch with only the impulses of his hands and thus would never get hit. Well, would you like to take a guess at what happens? First off, he brought in a true professional fighter to sit in front of him, one Alex Lee. Lee was an actual multiple-time martial arts champion from Ukraine, and the master had asked him to do a simulated punch, whatever the heck that means, in order for him to show off his technique. To his credit, the master does indeed block the first punch, and you can even see him smirking as he does. But then he makes one simple mistake. He delivers a very non-simulated slap onto Lee, and that's when Lee goes postal, throwing hands at him, and the master doesn't block a single one. This claim is absolutely fake, and the martial arts master needed to be exposed. He made bold claims about the things he could do, but it didn't have any basis in reality. Now, I'm not saying that he was on drugs or anything like that, but he was clearly high on himself until he was brought back down to earth with some very heavy punches. Number 17. Green Cloud Kung Fu. What the heck is Green Cloud Kung Fu? I honestly have no earthly idea, and that should tell you everything you need to know about what's coming up next in this video. This person is Gus Caparrós, who would love to tell you all the stories he has in the martial arts world. For example, he has apparently met legendary masters, been training in Muay Thai since he was 10 years old, won several street fights without any rules, and even beat a fellow master so badly that he took the keys to his school, and didn't get in trouble for it. But would you like to guess what happened to Gus? Some people were well aware of his habit of being an incredibly terrible liar, and they decided to call him out on it at his own school where he was teaching, you guessed it, Green Cloud Kung Fu. That's where this guy comes in. You can tell that the big guy has some fighting experience but is hardly a master, and yet he is beating up Gus so badly that the real master calls off the fight. What's the lesson in all of this? Well, it just goes to show that if you do end up lying about who you are in the martial arts community, you will be found out and embarrassed. Number 16. Kickboxing versus Tai Chi. Another issue people have with certain practitioners of martial arts is that they feel they're invincible once they reach a certain level or have practiced long enough. But that's not how it works if you're not using it in a real fight against people who are honestly trying to take you down. That's what one Chinese mixed martial arts event showed when they brought in a so-called Tai Chi master, one who had been practicing the revered art for decades, versus a kickboxer who had only been in the game for about 6 months. The fight quickly started and then quickly ended after only one single punch from the kickboxer to the supposed master. Some even wondered if it was one of the quickest KOs in the history of kickboxing, which cannot be confirmed or denied. For the record, the master ended up being fine and was able to recover and leave the ring under his own power. But for many, it only highlighted that simply practicing a martial art does not make you a master like many would claim. All it took was one punch from an amateur kickboxer to end things, and that says a lot. The difference here is in implementation and use. You can train in karate for years, but if you're not testing yourself in situations where you need to take someone down, you're just doing moves in a certain order. In contrast, people like kickboxers, MMA fighters, or even straight-up boxers have to train against others like them to get better and refine their craft. They're constantly under the pressure of combat, whereas some martial arts classes don't exactly do that. In the end, it results in many people thinking they know what to do versus those who are battle-tested and actually do know what to do. Now it's time for today's topic. For today's topic, you may label this one, "He didn't realize that this man was the most powerful kung fu master," or something to that effect, as that's the story the picture is trying to tell. Allegedly, this picture comes from a martial arts tournament in China where a karate master is about to be schooled by a monk who knows actual kung fu, but he doesn't realize that yet. Whether this actually happened or not, well, that's debatable for numerous reasons, not the least of which is that for a tournament being held in China, you can tell there are not a whole lot of Chinese people in the crowd. Not to mention, all of their faces are distorted. Now, we do admit that the idea of a monk who does kung fu is a bit of a stereotype. However, don't be fooled by what TV shows and movies have taught you. Kung fu does derive from China, and equally as important, Buddhist monks often learned the martial art as a means to protect themselves from thieves and bandits. They were the original masters and used kung fu not as a means of attack but as defense, as well as to enhance one's own body. Monks are spiritual beings more often than not, and kung fu helps them to focus and harness their energy inside to do, sometimes superhuman things. So if this fake karate master was indeed about to go up against a real kung fu monk, well, that monk would have owned him and made it look easy. In fact, I bet that karate master continually got frustrated while the monk remained calm throughout. It's a shame there's no video to go along with this alleged fight, though. As always, you can comment down below and let me know your opinion about what you just saw on the screen. Number 15. The OneArmed Boxer. This one may seem kind of comical at first, but there's a video to prove that it did actually happen. Wing Chun is one of the oldest forms of martial arts, and as noted earlier, it was one of the first ones that Bruce Lee learned and mastered while he was growing up. The difference is that Bruce Lee started with Wing Chun and then went on to a more natural style of Kung Fu, which allowed him to become the master we all know him to be. In contrast, some Wing Chun masters believe in the style to the degree of feeling that it may be a superpower, which is both dangerous and stupid all at the same time. Even if Bruce Lee did know that it could be an incredibly restrictive martial art, he learned it from the actual IP man. Getting back on topic, there was a Wing Chun master who got into an official match against a literal one-armed boxer. For context, that boxer had severe damage in his other arm, so he willingly boxed with only one arm, and it was good enough to put the so-called master in his place. All it took was a few hits to the head, and the master folded on their refined style, which let a one-armed man win the fight. Number 14. Su Xiaodong's personal mission. As we are documenting throughout this entire video, there are plenty of people out there who claim to be masters who clearly cannot hold a candle to actual fighters. And that's where someone like Su Xiaodong comes into play. He's an MMA fighter of controversial renown because, instead of just going through the MMA world, he's dedicated himself to a personal mission of exposing those who make various claims about the martial arts they practice. Specifically, he goes after so-called masters of ancient martial arts and then soundly defeats them. Two of his most viral videos show him taking down so-called masters of Tai Chi and Wing Chun. The first is one of the oldest martial arts out there and is said to be deadly when used properly, and the latter is the famous martial art mastered by Bruce Lee. As you can see in the clips, he not only destroys them with basic MMA skills but takes them down with ease, which makes you really wonder if they deserve the title of master or even grandmaster that they claim to have earned. So, let's address the real elephant in the room. Is this person right to go after these masters and expose the dark side of martial arts? Well, that's a bit complicated. On the one hand, anyone who says they're a master and then gets owned by someone they should destroy clearly is not as good as they say. But it doesn't mean that the martial arts are fraudulent. After all, we all know of legendary martial artists who were absolutely as good as they claimed, if not better, with names like Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris, Donnie Yen, and more proving their worth in the real world as well as in Hollywood films. Fakers? Well, they should be exposed, but don't think that everyone is fake just because this one guy took them down. Number 13. Tai Chi and Muay Thai. Now, believe it or not, Tai Chi and Muay Thai are based around the same principles of martial arts and are considered to be relatives in the martial arts field. The difference naturally is how they're used and what their focus is in training. In the case of Muay Thai, it's all about attacking with your 8 limbs and learning quickly so that you can get right on the offensive. Whereas in Tai Chi, it's a bit more meditative in its function and form. While they may be similar in nature, Muay Thai is easier to pick up and is known to get your body in better shape faster. So in this case, we see a Tai Chi master going up against a Muay Thai fighter, and that Muay Thai guy wins with a very simple kick to the head. It's not to say that the art of Tai Chi is fake, as it's not, and it's known for helping people to get fit and stay fit. But it doesn't necessarily mean that knowing it will make you some kind of fighting master either. Number 12. Bajikun. Now, I've talked a lot about various Chinese styles, and Bajikun is arguably one of the most decisive ones. Whereas Kung Fu is traditionally about versatility and improving one's own body, Bajikun is about using explosive power through various limbs, including your head, to deliver powerful strikes that will take out your opponents. Many people in China and beyond love Bajikun because it's perfect for close-quarter combat and overwhelming attackers quickly. So, with that in mind, have a look at this match between a Bajikun user and a so-called Kung Fu master, and see just how well it went for that master when they tried to get cute with their moves instead of actually attacking the person with actual techniques. Here's a hint. It did not go well for them, and you have my full permission to laugh your ass off. I'm not being mean, it's just karma in the end. Number 11. Ma. Here is a guy named Ma. He comes from China, and he had 2 of the most unique careers that you're ever going to see. The first career was as a fake martial arts master. He claimed that he had created a martial art of his own, and then he used an MMA fighter to help him stage some fake fights, lying about how good he was. Then he gets called out for it, and he has to flee in disgrace. That is until he reemerged and became, I kid you not, the godfather of nightclubs. He would go to clubs and do dance routines using his various techniques, and that would lead him to apparently getting paid a lot of money. Oh, and he also became an internet meme due to his wild moves. I guess everyone really does have a purpose in this world. Number 10. Karate versus MMA. Now, before you go panicking, I do know that karate is a legitimate martial art. I mean, a lot of people learn it to defend themselves, and it does work really well. However, like many other practices, it can be easy to look at something like karate, and then you'll soon be thinking that you're going to be kicking everyone's ass with a whole lot of ease after only a few lessons. In contrast, MMA is all about constant training and fighting against others that are on your skill level and above, and learning how to get out of certain situations depending on the martial arts discipline that you're fighting against. This fight here highlights that in full. We have a black belt karate user versus an MMA fighter, and that MMA fighter completely cleans the Karate Kid's clock. Clearly, he did have enough skill to go up against others of his fight discipline, and he does get some hits in on the fighter, but that fighter dominates him with various strikes and grapples. Against an untrained opponent, he probably would have done well enough, but not against this guy. Training and learning counters is key in any fight, and that's why MMA is one of the toughest combat sports in the world today. Number 9. Yeah, he's fake. As we enter the top 10, it's honestly sad that there are 10 more fools who like to think that they're masters when they clearly and obviously are not. For example, if you thought the last guy was an idiot, just wait until you check out this next one. This fake master comes from Vietnam, and he's putting on a show for everyone at home. I'm pretty sure they're happy they're watching it for free. I mean, seriously, there is so much wrong with all of this that it actually hurts to look at and describe, not the least of which is that he's not even trying to hide that he's fake, yet he's still trying to make it seem like he's the master of some kind of craft. He claims to have the power to repel opponents with chi energy, yet every time he demonstrates the skill, his students dramatically fall over with exaggerated reactions. Observers can easily see that the students are playing along, likely out of loyalty or fear of losing face. At one point, he swings his arms in slow, wide motions that wouldn't fool anyone with real combat experience. His techniques lack precision, speed, or any practical application, making his supposed powers laughable to even casual martial arts fans. To top it all off, he even pretends to sense attacks with his eyes closed, but fails miserably, further exposing his lack of true skill. Here's a hint he's not, and we are moving on. Number 8. Kung Fu versus MMA. Now, if you can't tell, I have flipped the title around from the first time. Here we have yet another kung fu master who thinks that they can take on an experienced mixed martial arts fighter, one who actually fought in the UFC for a time, just because they have their martial arts discipline down. On the one hand, the kung fu guy actually does get some hits in on his opponent, which is more than we can say about some other guys that we've talked about so far. However, on the other hand, once that MMA fighter got locked in and began going to work, the match was over pretty quickly. This fight highlights another misconception about things like kung fu. It's not all about the strikes, it's also about the blocks and the defense. MMA fighters know how to use their defense arguably more than anyone, and that's why the MMA fighter here won by putting the master to sleep. Perhaps the guy will dream about winning someday. Number 7. Bad technique. If you want to see another example of training versus fake techniques, you only have to look at this fight right here. We have a kung fu guy versus an MMA fighter, and the kung fu guy has clearly seen too many films and not realized that many of those fancy techniques that he saw do not work in the real world. You can see in this video how he continuously winds up against an MMA fighter, but he's not able to land an attack or just gets hit before he's able to do so. The MMA fighter easily anticipates each movement, dodging the exaggerated strikes with minimal effort and closing the distance to land precise counterattacks. The kung fu practitioner tries to maintain distance with flashy moves, but he lacks the footwork and defensive skills to fend off the MMA fighter's relentless approach. At one point, he attempts a high kick that leaves him off balance, giving the MMA fighter an easy opening to tackle him to the ground. The difference in conditioning becomes evident as the kung fu guy visibly tires, while the MMA fighter keeps up his pace, delivering a swift takedown. By the end, the kung fu guy realizes his style is no match for the MMA fighter's well-rounded training and practical combat skills. The MMA fighter even takes on another pro, and it goes just as well for him. Number 6. The no-touch master again. Now, here's a twist in this story. I'm not talking about that last guy, but instead, I'm talking about a brand new one, and this one is arguably much worse than the last. You see, Master Yanagi Ryukin believed that he had developed a style of martial arts which allowed him to not only avoid being hit by anyone but also defeat anyone without touching them. That's not exactly how a fight works, but don't worry, he will get his comeuppance soon enough. As you watch this video, you're going to see his art at work as he easily dispatches his students without much thought. However, the joke was actually on him, as he soon put up a reward of $5,000 to anyone who could defeat him. That's where Iwakiro, an MMA guy who specialized in multiple martial arts, came in. In an official fight setting, he touched him repeatedly and with no mercy. Well, okay, he did have a little bit of mercy at one point, but he clearly cleaned the fake master's clock. It's honestly really funny to watch, and it is proof that you can, in fact, touch this. Number 5. Liar, liar. Now seriously, though, what is with all these fake masters rolling up on people and thinking that they can just go and lie their way into respect and glory? That's not exactly how it works. In this case, a guy walked into a Brazilian jiu-jitsu gym in Indiana and made the bold claim that he was a purple belt. If you're unfamiliar with the ranking system in that particular martial art, if you are a true purple belt, you are really, really good and you'll be able to move around on the mat with basically what accumulates to superpowers. The fake purple belt claimed he'd been training for years, flaunting techniques and moves that looked sloppy to anyone with actual experience. The gym members quickly noticed his lack of basic skills, like poor posture and unrefined transitions, which are telltale signs of inexperience in jiu-jitsu. John McGinn, a seasoned MMA fighter, decided to let the guy try his moves, knowing full well it would expose his bluff. Within seconds, McGinn had him pinned, controlling the entire match with ease and forcing him to admit his real skill level. It wasn't long before the so-called master, embarrassed and defeated, tried to make excuses, but the gym wasn't buying it. Enter MMA fighter and true Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner John McGinn, who decided to roll with the master and soon got that master to confess exactly how bad he was because he was owned in seconds flat. Oh, and to compound the error of his ways, he also said that he was a police officer when he actually wasn't. I mean, what is even wrong with people? Number 4. Master Ken. We'll change things up just a little bit, and instead of blasting those who say that they're real and yet are not, I'll show you one who is real but pokes fun at those who are fake in a comedic style. This is Master Ken. He's an actual martial artist of 2 different disciplines, and he has seen plenty of people hype themselves up into oblivion only to be proven fake. So, this guy created Master Ken to literally spoof fake master. He can totally kick your butt, but he'll also make you roll on the ground in laughter at all the other things that he can do. Master Ken's signature move, the thrust of freedom, is his hilarious answer to every problem, no matter how impractical or absurd it might be. Through his character, he breaks down notoriously bad martial arts techniques in the most exaggerated way, exposing just how silly they look in real-life scenarios. His over-the-top persona includes teaching street lethal moves that parody the exaggerated claims of some self-defense gurus. The humor in his skits doesn't only entertain, it subtly educates viewers on the importance of practical, effective techniques. As ridiculous as he may seem, Master Ken's underlying knowledge of real martial arts shines through, making him a favorite among fans and a legend in martial arts comedy. This is a true hero of the world. Master Ken understands how ridiculous martial arts can seem at times, and then he rides that wave of ridiculousness all the way to true and pure hilarity. Number 3. Elong. Remember Su Xiaodong from earlier, the guy who wanted to expose all the fake masters with his MMA skills? Well, there was one foe he tried to accept his challenge but wouldn't take it, and that was Elong. The reason he was on the docket for Su was that Elong called himself a Shaolin monk and even self-trained in Shaolin Kung Fu. It was even noted by actual monks that he was not one of their order, so he is actually fake, but he's not a fake fighter. Elong had spent years honing his skills in kickboxing, facing off against high-level opponents across Asia, and earning a reputation for his resilience and skill. He developed a unique style that blended traditional Kung Fu techniques with practical combat skills, making him a formidable opponent in the ring. Many fans admired his ability to absorb hits and push through intense fights, something only a true fighter could manage. Despite the Shaolin monk controversy, Elong's win record spoke for itself, proving his abilities to anyone who questioned them. It's likely that Su Xiaodong realized Elong's skill set wasn't something to dismiss, leading him to reconsider the challenge. And that might be why Su backed down. Elong was a famous kickboxer with over 60 victories under his belt, which meant that he likely could have gone toe-to-toe and won the fight. Thus, if you're going to call out a fake, you need to make sure that they're actually not real fighters. Number 2. Training versus training. I'm not focusing on a specific match or person in this one, but highlighting a key difference between fake masters and real fighters. Training is something that every fighter, no matter the discipline, has to go through. The difference is how you train and how you build yourself up to be a worthy fighter. For example, there was apparently a fight between a 30-plus-year veteran of Kung Fu going up against a rookie boxer with only 8 months of training. And as you could likely guess, that rookie won without a whole lot of issues. This is because real fighters constantly test themselves against live opponents, learning to adapt to unpredictable movements and real pressure. Fake masters, on the other hand, often train in controlled settings, practicing moves that may look impressive but lack practical application in a real fight. The gap is clear when a fighter knows what it's like to be hit, handle adrenaline, and recover from mistakes in real time. Sparring, a key part of real fight training, prepares fighters to face resistance, something many fake masters simply avoid. A master who's never experienced an actual fight is likely to crumble under the intensity that real fighters face regularly. Simply put, fake masters think their techniques are enough, while up-and-coming boxers, fighters, and other martial arts practitioners train really hard against other fighters to ensure that their techniques are enough. Sometimes that's the difference, and it's not inexperience. Number 1. The lesson. Instead of ending this on one last fight, I'll wrap up by highlighting the moral of the story, that being that martial arts is a key part of our world, and those who practice it do help people in various ways. Sometimes it's to learn confidence and build up one's body. Sometimes it's for spiritual relevance and to feel more connected with the world while pushing out everything that bothers you. Martial arts can also foster discipline and respect, teaching practitioners to handle situations with calmness rather than aggression. In fact, many martial arts schools emphasize the importance of humility, reminding students that the true strength of a martial artist lies in restraint and wisdom. Martial arts can even create a sense of community, bringing together people from diverse backgrounds united by shared goals and respect for one another. For some, it serves as a safe outlet for expressing emotions, providing a therapeutic release that keeps their minds and bodies balanced. At its core, martial arts encourage personal growth, pushing individuals to continuously improve and find peace within themselves. However, if you do drink the Kool-Aid and think that just because you know martial arts, you're unbeatable, you're going to eventually meet someone who ends up beating you senseless. That's going to make you think twice about all of your life choices, among other things, of course. That's a wrap from the world of martial arts fakers getting taken down by real fighters in some pretty unforgettable ways. Which of these so-called masters were you most satisfied to see put in their place? And who do you think won't make the same mistake twice? Maybe there's another wannabe who got schooled that we should have included. Let me know all about it in the comments below. Check out the other cool videos popping up on the screen, and I'll see you next time.